Hi, this is Rebecca, and today I want to talk about one of the things that tends to keep people from going forward in their purpose. You know, a lot of times you can see a problem and you can have an idea of what you want to do, but if you don't believe that it's possible to do it, then it's not going to get done. Worse yet, if you don't believe that you can do it, you're not going to move on it. So the idea of it's not possible, even if you haven't said those words, if somewhere in your mind you believe that, you're never going to go forward and you're going to miss out on your purpose. So I'm going to give you today some really practical things to help you go forward, to get over the idea of it's not possible. You know, I look back and I look at somebody like Thomas Edison. If Thomas Edison had thought that it was not really possible to invent an electric light bulb, he would not have worked and come up with 1,000 different tries at making that light bulb. He had to, within himself, believe that it was possible in order to push through and make it happen. The same is true for any of us. If we don't think it's possible, even if we do get started, we're not going to go through and finish what we need to do. We need to start rethinking. What if anything is possible? And what if the only reason it hasn't come into reality yet is because somebody hasn't figured out how? So here's the way to start reframing your thinking so that you can go forward and do what you need to do to solve problems that nobody else has solved. You need to, instead of coming from a place of, I don't think I can, or I don't think it's possible, you need to start reframing your thinking and start asking the question, how could I? How could it happen? If it were possible, how could it happen? What that's going to do when you start asking that question is it's going to trigger a different part of your brain to start thinking from a place of creativity. It's going to start causing you to focus on the problem, focus on the solution to the problem. It's going to get you past whatever is clouding your mind and keeping you from moving, and it's going to force you to start working it, to start making something happen. So the first step is, how could it happen? How could it work? What would it look like if it were possible? And how could I make that happen? Now, this same thing works even with a team, even with people around you, because sometimes the people around you are going to be the ones saying it can't be done. And in fact, if there's a problem that everybody has just learned to live with for a long time, it gets in the mindset that, well, it's not been solved, so it must not be able to be solved. Get past that. How could it? So when one of your teammates, one of the people around you, starts saying it can't be done, rephrase the question for them. Say, okay, if it were possible, how could we? How could we make that happen? Well, how would we have to look at that in order to actually start addressing that problem? How could we make something work? Rephrase it and force them to get into that creative part of their brain and start working the problem. And this really is a progressive thing too, because you start out with how do we, how can we, how could we, and as you progress, often there are going to be obstacles that come along, things that kind of deter you, sidetrack you, and so ask it again. With that new obstacle, with that new thing that's deterring you, how could we get past that? How could we overcome that? Trigger that part of your brain that's going to create the new ideas, that's going to help you solve problems that nobody else has solved before, that's going to help you move forward in fulfilling a purpose that you were destined for. Start by believing. It is possible. Everything is possible. People just haven't figured it out yet. So with this problem, how could I? How could I make that happen? Go do that today. Start making that change in your brain and your thinking, and start solving the things that you were meant to solve. I look forward to talking to you again. Next week we'll have more practical tips for you. I encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get notifications every Monday when we put out a new video. Thanks.